All right, everyone, we are live. I am so excited to be here for the second ever AuthorTube Virtual Retreat. I took part in the first one in May, and it was so much fun. So I'm so happy to be a part of this one as well. Please let me know in the comments how you're doing today, and I hope you're enjoying all of the workshops, and if you've done any of the sprints too, I hope you're enjoying those. Let me know which one has been like your favorite so far. I've really enjoyed everyone's. I've been able to pop in for most people's, so it's been awesome. So today I will be talking about creating character arcs, and I know a lot of you guys are really excited. Danya's here, Jessie, Sam, Brittany, Keelan, Good Girl Williams. So hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. The pronoun I, Colin, awesome. So happy to see so many people here. Yay. So I'm going to, try to make sure that I keep this to an hour. What I want you to do is, if you have any questions, try to save them for the end, because I'll have like a little Q&A time. And if you, are afraid you're going to forget it, if you want to write it down or something, but hopefully I will address it during the workshop today. So it's all about creating character arcs, whether you're brainstorming, outlining, drafting, or editing. So really, pretty much no matter what stage you're at in your writing process right now, these tips will help you to craft memorable and lovable characters, create strong, powerful arcs and character-driven stories to help grab your readers' attention and keep them reading and keep them engaged in your books. And then somewhere around the halfway point, I will be revealing the secret word, so make sure you don't miss that, so that you could be entered into a drawing for one of 4 $15 Amazon gift cards. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I say the secret word. Awesome. So Sako's love the poetry workshop. Oh, Brittany says she had a sneak peek of the presentation. There's so much good info. Thank you so much. Brittany also has a good presentation coming up, so I'm excited about. Keelan says character arcs is 100% the weakest part of my writing, so I'm stoked. Well, I hope that these tips will be helpful for you. And Heather's here. Hello. Yay, everyone. I'm so excited. And Dal is here. Awesome. Oh, Savi, Sako. Oh my gosh, I missed everyone. Layla. Okay, awesome. So in the workshop today, we'll discuss what a character arc is, how to develop your characters / creating profiles, the different kinds of character arcs, and then lastly, how to hook your readers, which is what we all want. And so the advice that I'll be presenting to you guys today is based on my own knowledge and experiences, as well as I referenced Creating Character Arcs by K.M. Weiland and Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. So if some terms and things sound familiar, then you know why. All right, so first thing, we're just going to go to the basics right now to just talk about what is a character arc. So a couple different definitions. A character arc maps the evolution of a character's personality throughout the story. It's their emotional journey. And it's the protagonist's journey from a place of comfort to rapid change and back again, hence an arc. And it deals with the internal development and personal changes one must undergo, not just about overcoming the external challenges. So it's that internal change that like people really get attached to. And when people finish a book and they're like, I love this book, it was so memorable, it's usually that character arc, the internal changes that people connect with. And so that arc leaves a character in a different place than where they started. And so like that's what we're here for when we're reading a book. We want to see those changes. So how can you plot a believable, compelling, strong arc that will leave readers wanting more? Well, you also want to test the strengths and weaknesses of the character until they emerge a changed person, for better or for worse. So we will discuss that. Let's see. Oh, so really quick, I just want to address, Good Girl Williams asked, okay, just found out about the workshop. Are other writers doing this? And how long will it be going on? Ooh, I'm so glad you found this. So it's been going on since 8 a.m. Eastern this morning and goes until, I believe, 10 p.m. Eastern tonight, and then all day tomorrow as well. So I have links down below to the playlist for day one, which is today, and then tomorrow there's a playlist link too. But if you type in AuthorTube Virtual Retreat, there should be a channel, but I should have all of that linked down below. So I'm glad that you are here for the first one. And I hope that you watch all the other ones because they were awesome. Okay, so developing your characters. To craft compelling characters, you need to plot your novel. So I know some people don't want to hear this, aka the pantsers out there, or even like the plantsers. Like I actually consider myself a plantser because I don't like hardcore like plot things out, but I'm hoping this time for NaNoWriMo I can like go nitty gritty and like pretty much have this whole novel written out in like outline form. So like a hardcore plotter, but whether it's before or after writing your first draft or your zero draft, if some people kind of write a zero draft, you should study and implement these specific strategies when developing your characters. And so I like to say the plotters or plantsers are saying to the pantsers, come to the dark side, we have cookies. You know, so here's the thing, that character arcs can be developed in the editing phase, but it just might mean that you have to do more work later on. So that's why like you don't, you know, have to be daunted if you're a pantser that you're like, well, I don't have this whole arc plotted out before I write because I'm just writing this like discovery draft. I'm just learning about the characters. And that's totally fine if you don't have their arc all planned out. But after you've written the draft and you can, you know, go through your editing phase for developmental changes and say, okay, now how is this arc that I've made for this character? Is there even an arc here? And then that's when you can be more nitty gritty and specific. So it's okay if you don't do it before, but you at least have to do it while you're editing. Okay, and so questions to ask. Do you want your character to have a positive, negative, or flat arc? And I'll go more into detail about the different types of arcs in some upcoming slides. Oh, Keelan, really good. I just had to say, Keelan said, this is the tough talk I needed. I do plot after my zero draft, but I don't want to. So I know, Keelan, I think you don't mind developmental editing. I struggle with developmental edits, so I realize I have to be as detailed as I can so that I have the cleanest first draft I can, because it will make future Holly really happy. So if you don't mind like screwing with like your future self and giving your future self more work, then that's fine. Okay, so let's see here. And then you want to ask what part or parts of a character's backstory drive their motivations. You also want to ask, what is your character's GMC, which is their goal, motivation, and conflict. So this method was developed by Deborah Dixon, and I've mentioned this in some previous videos, and actually in the last AuthorTube Virtual Retreat about editing, because that's something that you want to look out for in the editing phase as well. But so when you're trying to develop your character's GMC, you're looking at their goal. So what does the character want to achieve? What is it that the character wants to avoid? And then their motivation is, why does the character want this goal? So yes, they have a goal, but there's a reason behind it. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you have a conflict for that goal, because it creates tension and builds the plot. And that's like the whole point of the story. So you want to find out what stands in the character's way and why can't the character have that goal. Okay. You also want to find out, so it's somewhat similar to, but this one's from Save the Cat, is your character's PWN, problem, want, and need. So their problem is a flaw or a problem that needs fixing in the character's life. And then you want to figure out their want or their goal that the hero is proactively pursuing. And then the need is the life lesson that needs to be learned. So this one also is helping with that arc because they have a problem. They want something that they think will fix that problem. And there's something completely different that they need in order to solve that problem. And it's not what they think. So that's what they learn over time. And so that one's really important because you need a flawed hero who isn't perfect. They must do some hard work to solve the real problem. K.M. Weiland, I believe, calls this like the shard of glass. So that's a psychological wound that's festering under the skin. That's what the shard of glass is. It's like in their skin. They need to get it out. That's their flaw. And it's like stuck with them until they find a resolution to get it out. But so that flaw is kind of like their lie in a way. So it's what they believe will make them happy. Their goal, their want, they believe that this will make them happy, and how they get that goal is not exactly what they think. So you want to make sure that there's a difference between the two. And then you also want to make your character a likable hero. So yes, they have these flaws, but you don't want them to have like just only flaws, because then people will be like, well, this person's horrible. I don't want to read about them. So you need that balance of having the flaws so that they're relatable, because they're human. Maybe fae or vampire, they still have to have some sort of human quality to them. But so you also want to make them likable. And so there's like 5 different sort of categories for likable heroes. So you can make them, even if they have a flaw, maybe they're selfless, charming, principled, smart, or sympathetic. So those are different ways that you can kind of craft your characters to be, multi-dimensional, and not make them like Mary Sue, or I forget what like the male version of that is. Mary Sue and like I don't know, Perfect Tom or something. Let me know in the comments if you know what like the male version of a Mary Sue, but a Mary Sue is like a hero who's like perfect and is like goody two shoes, no problems, and they're just like boring and like super flat. Heather says a flawed hero who isn't perfect. It's easy to try to create likable characters, but they need to be realistic too. I'm not perfect, so they shouldn't be either. Yes, very true. Okay, so I wanted to dive a little deeper into the goal motivation conflict method and give you guys an example. So the goal motivation conflict can be both external and internal, and they kind of line up with one another along the course of the novel. And so then you can kind of combine the GMC into one sentence. So because the main character wants this goal because of this motivation, but they can't because of this conflict. So the example I pulled it from the internet because it was the easiest thing. So sorry, it's not like super like recent. I was like, I can try to think of a YA fantasy or something, but we're going with The Wizard of Oz because that's something that I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone, and it's pretty like universal that people know this story. So an example of like the external goal motivation conflict is Dorothy wants to leave Oz and go home, which is her goal, because her aunt is sick, which is her motivation. But the Wicked Witch wants to stop her and get revenge, which is the conflict. And then it's all resolved when Dorothy finally returns home and wakes from her dream. She's reached her external goal. So hopefully all of these make sense. Oh, okay. Emma says Gary Stew or Marty Stew. I love that. I feel like, gosh, which one? Gary Stew, Mary Sue, and Gary Stew. I think, yeah, I'll go with Gary Stew. Oh, thanks for stopping by, Katie. And thanks, Keelan. Keelan says, make sure to smash the like, friends. Thank you so much, Keelan. Awesome host. And then the internal GMC example is Dorothy wants to be happy and find her place, which is her goal, because she's not content with her life. That's her motivation. Because she doesn't know what exactly she wants. That's the conflict. Turns out there's no place like home, and Dorothy has reached her internal goal. Yay! So hopefully that makes a little more sense with like the GMC all strung together. Okay, so really quick, I wanted to go into character profiles. So character profiles should be created so that they help you write and edit easier. They should further your understanding of your character's goals, wants, needs, and motivations, aka their internal arc. So this part is something that I think is really important, is to try not to get too bogged down by unnecessary stats when outlining or plotting, which is something that I started off doing. And even in like my, the last work in progress I had outlined, I just gave all these nitty gritty specifics. And like, sometimes it's not really important and it doesn't really help you get to know the character better. So for example, like, writing down and figuring out your character's favorite song or their best friend in third grade. It's like, okay, you're finding out some of this stuff, but is this backstory really important? Maybe that favorite song will come into play with like a romantic subplot because their ex like brought this, introduce them to the song or something, but that's something you can kind of come along with later, as opposed to like just coming up with all these things, the character's favorite drink, the scar they have on their knee when they were 6, things like that. So you just want to make sure that you're actually outlining and plotting, outlining things that are relevant, that are going to help build up the character's arc. And that will come across more on the page than these things that aren't as relevant. And so if those points are important, you can come up with them while drafting, or after you finish drafting, you can come up with them when you're editing. But you want to make sure that you're knowing your character as best you can. And that's more figuring out their personality, how they're going to react in certain situations. So kind of like writing about your character using like writing prompts to kind of build up and find out their voice. I find that like much more important than what was their favorite song. And so this is my character profile template. So this is like what I'm currently using when I'm outlining my novels and my nano novel this year. So as you can see, I don't have like too much stuff. And I might try to flesh out a little bit more, but this is at least like the bare minimum that I want to have for my main characters. So the character info includes gender, sexual orientation, are they the protagonist, antagonist, things like that. And then age, physical description, that's all self-explanatory, things they like, things they hate. More than anything, I want the character based on is, I like to choose an actor or an actress because it gets me in the character's shoes and helps me write like a deeper point of view, because I can picture their face in my head. And also, because oh shoot, I totally forgot her name. I'm like, sorry for butchering the last presenter's, forgetting the last presenter's name about creating characters. But she had a whole part about creating the aesthetic board, and like that's kind of like the fun part about creating characters. But what I like to do is have like a real person to base it off of, so that I have lots of pictures in lots of different clothes, lots of different facial expressions, so that I can use those when I'm doing like an aesthetic board. So like if I want something that's a little bit darker, like, oh, but all these pictures, they're smiling. So I kind of like having that consistency. So that's something fun that I like to do. And then also, if you're doing a character that is like older, then you might even have some pictures to use as a reference from when they looked younger too. So like maybe they, have a little sister or brother, and then you can just use the younger version of themselves. So kind of fun things to play around with that. And Doll says, agree with you. Character voice is way more important than some questions like what's their favorite food. Yes. You can come up with all that for your author interview once the book is coming out, because everyone wants to know what your character's favorite like Starbucks drink is. And then lastly, I put what their GMC and their PWN is. Okay, we are doing good on time. Oops, I gave it away. I was gonna wait and then flash it. So, secret word, you guys, make sure you pause and write this down. The secret word is save the cat. Throughout the retreat, I want you guys to try to collect as many of those secret words as you can. There will be one in each session. Write them down, because at the end, you can fill out a feedback form, which is linked in the description. It's also on the AuthorTube Virtual Retreat website and through the YouTube page. But each word is an entry for a draw to win one of 4 $15 Amazon gift cards. And the more secret words you collect, the better your chances of winning. So you want to get on that. The feedback form will close at the end of September, and winners will be announced at the beginning of October, which is crazy to think we're already almost halfway through September. Like, isn't that crazy? I can't believe it. But yeah, I picked Save the Cat because that's what I based a lot of my building character arcs off of. But also, I feel like K.M. Weiland is also like the queen of creating character arcs, because that's where I first learned about that. And then Ian H asked, what is PWN GMC? So I mentioned that in a couple earlier slides, the problem, want, need, and then the goal, motivation, conflict. So if you missed that, if you came in just now, if you want to watch the replay, go ahead and check out the earlier slides, because I describe those and I show examples as well. And Pericula says, I've never gotten into character profiles. I do the PWN GMC, but not all those details. If it happens organically in the story, fine, but I don't make lists of those things. Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it's like you don't know, so you want to just figure it out as you go. For me, I'm very character driven. My plots are very character driven, and so I can't write out the plot unless I know like everything about the character. So I kind of like, there's some things where like some like order of outlining where you like come up with the plot first, and I'm like, I can't do that. I have to know the characters and what's their internal arc. That's like the first thing that I want to decide before I go on to anything else. Okay, Save the Cat, woohoo! Oh, Good Girl Williams, the secret word is to be, so I just explained, it's to enter it into a drawing to win one of 4 $15 Amazon gift cards. So there's a feedback form that should be linked in the description or on the AuthorTube Virtual Retreat website. So please check that out, and then check out the secret words on the other workshops and panels as well. I don't know if they're on panels, but at least in workshops there are. Okay. All right, we're doing good on time, you guys. I was worried because I'm like slow. Okay, yay, we moved on to the arcs. Yay. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about are the positive arcs. I has words. So a positive arc is where a character overcomes external obstacles and internal flaws to become a better person. There is self-improvement. They reject the lie and accept the truth. So, you know, what they thought was going to like solve their problem, what they thought would bring them to their goal was the lie, and they find out what's really going to help them achieve what they want, and that's the truth. And they essentially find out what will solve their flaw. So kind of progression of this arc is they believe the lie that they're unworthy of their journey, and then they're overcome by obstacles on the journey because they continue to cling to the lie that they think will solve their problems. And then they're forced to confront the truth about their inner strength, and then in the end they believe the truth and they win whatever it is that they're trying to win. So I have a couple examples of characters with positive arcs, such as Harry Potter, obviously from the Harry Potter series, Star in The Hate U Give, Cora from A Touch of Gold, Cinder from the Lunar Chronicles, Zelly from Children of Blood and Bone. So pretty much, if you're reading about a protagonist, in most cases, they are a positive arc, because that's why they're the main character. When you're trying to figure out your main character, that's the person that has the farthest they have to go. I think I talk about that a little bit at the end too, about what will hook your reader. So we'll go into that a little bit more. Okay. Hopefully I'm not going too fast, you guys. Let me know if I'm like speeding through this or if it's okay. Okay, and then on to the negative arcs. This is a character's downward spiral, which is also very amusing and entertaining to read about. So the character's goal is driven by their lie, and they either unknowingly or knowingly embrace the lie, bringing them further from the truth. So negative arcs are usually villains, and that's why. Okay, good. The pace is good for me. Okay, awesome. Okay, hold on. Let me get some water. Brittany reminded me to have water nearby and handy for when we get parched so we don't have frog throat. So thanks, Brittany. Okay. So a progression of this is they believe a lie about the world. The world is horrible. I'm watching Avatar, The Last Airbender right now, and it's like Fire Lord, you know, the Fire Lord. Oh, the Fire Nation should rule. Like, you believe this lie about the world. So they leave their normal life and enter a world that reinforces the lie. And then as the story goes on, they're confronted with the truth, and the world isn't what they thought. So they realize that like what they're doing is wrong. But they're still disillusioned by the truth, and they lose because they continue to cling to the lie. So their arc is obviously that downward spiral. They are not like accepting the truth. They refuse to change, essentially. And I mean, they're changing for the worse. Okay. Oh, I have more about negative arcs. Okay. Oh, yeah, so I already said this. So usually villains and antagonists have negative arcs. And Savi says Avatar has excellent character arcs. Yes, we're almost done. So after this, between this and the traditional publishing panel that I'm going, I am going to be finishing my rewatch of Avatar. So that'll be awesome. And so negative arcs can include anti-heroes. So an anti-hero is a protagonist who lacks some of the conventional attributes of a traditional hero, like courage or morality. So while their actions are ultimately noble, they don't always act for the right reasons. These are the people that a lot of people like. People like anti-heroes. I love anti-heroes because it's that like morally gray character that we like. So for example, an example of an anti-hero, they might save someone from a dangerous situation because it furthers their interests, not because they actually care about helping that person. So examples of some anti-heroes who have negative arcs are Walter White from the Breaking Bad TV series, Victor Vale in Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Sherlock Holmes is a classic one. Also, one of the first people that popped into my head was Annalise Keating from How to Get Away with Murder. And then Enon from Children of Blood and Bone kind of like switches between being a hero and an anti-hero. So there's some characters that can be a little more complicated too. And there's also kind of like the flip side of the anti-hero, which you don't really hear about as much. But this is the anti-villain. And so the anti-villain does the wrong thing, but their motives are often noble, or at least they're like more sympathetic towards other people. So anti-villains typically have some characteristics we don't commonly associate with bad guys. And a good example of this is Prince Zuko from Avatar. He is the classic anti-villain. And so I know some people can be kind of confused between the anti-hero and anti-villain. So if you're not quite sure whether your character is an anti-hero or an anti-villain, you can ask yourself, who does the story ask readers to root for? So if that character is morally gray, they're likely the anti-hero. And the morally gray character who opposes them is probably the anti-villain. So if we want to use an example of that, who does the story ask readers to root for? So you wouldn't be rooting for Prince Zuko. So he's not the anti-hero, but he opposes the morally gray characters, so he's the anti-villain. Let's see. Oh, Heather says, Scrivener is good for a basic list of character traits that are character templates. Oh, that's awesome. I've been wanting to try Scrivener, and I'm like, when I win NaNoWriMo this year, I'm like, maybe I will actually try out Scrivener this year. So we'll see. But Keelan says, I love How to Get Away with Murder, and no one I know watches it. Makes mental note to chat with you about it later. Yes, yes. Oh, it's so good. I actually am not caught up, so I need to. I'm behind. But I'm very much a binge watchable person, so this will be fine. It's fine. Oh, Savvy, these Avatar explanations are perfect for all this. Yes, yes. I was like actively watching it, so I'm like, all of my examples are from Avatar. Let me find some other ones. Okay, so we have the positive arc and the negative arc, but there's more. There is the flat arc. So I thought this was really cool because you don't really read or notice flat arcs too much, but these are about characters who do not change throughout the story. They already have the truth figured out in the beginning of the story, and they use that truth to overcome various external tests. And so many superheroes have flat arcs because they're just always good. Like Superman, he's just going to save the world. And at the end of the story, he's still going to be saving the world. And one thing that was really interesting is I realized that I had a flat arc character in one of my work in progresses. And that is Abargo's Riddle. And it actually works for the story. And it was when I was just reading about character arcs and learning the difference between external and internal arcs. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's flat. He doesn't change. This is cool. But it worked out for him. So this doesn't mean that your flat arc characters are flat. It doesn't mean that at all. They can still have personality. They can still go through mini changes, but that fundamental truth that your hero is trying to find, they already know. So a lot of times they're also not just the superheroes, but they can also be the mentors as well. So those are common characters. All right. Okay, now here's another good part. We're going into how to keep your readers hooked using these character arcs that we've created. So you can keep the reader hooked from beginning to end with tension and suspense with where your character will end up. And so obviously, if your character's trying to figure these things out, you have the conflict of this character's goal that they're working towards, then you know ways to put stumbling blocks in your character's way, and you don't want to make it easy for them, and that's going to keep your readers reading because they want to know what's going to happen, and you're not making it easy, so they might not come out on the other side. And this is big, you guys. You need stakes. So stakes are, if the character doesn't do A, then B will happen. And this is like a big thing for agents too, especially if you're going the traditional publication route, and then obviously even if you're self or indie published, your readers want this too. They want to know, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen in the end? Because if the character doesn't get this, then this is going to happen. And so this is kind of what I was talking about before. You want to make sure you're choosing the right character as your main character. Because I know a lot of times if you're like plotting and outlining, you kind of have a couple characters that pop up in your head. But you want to choose the main character, or if you have multi-POV, a few main characters, like whose arc is the biggest? Who has the furthest to go to reach their goal? Who has the most that they can learn? Who has the most to gain from being the hero? And who is the most resistant to change? Because that's going to up the tension, because it's going to make it harder for them to actually change. And you can also think about which of your main characters is most like your reader, because that's the hero that your readers will connect with, because it feels more like them. Okay, let's see here. Yes, Pericula said flat arcs work really well for mentor characters. Lots of main characters of episodic stories have flat arcs. For example, James Bond doesn't really change. You can read whichever book first. Awesome. That's a great example. And Colin says, although flat arc characters don't change, their actions usually affect other characters' arcs during the story. True. And it does, because that's what happens with my character. That is a good point. Thank you. That is awesome. You guys are on it. You got that flat arc down pat. Okay. And then you want to determine what kind of hero or what kind of person your hero needs to be at the end that they aren't at the beginning of the novel, and show how that changes. So whether you're outlining it beforehand, you need to know what your character looks like at the end of the novel. They should be completely different than they are at the beginning. And the things that they do at the end of the novel, they would not have been able to do if they were the same person at the beginning of the novel. And that's going to help keep your readers hooked in that way, because they're fighting to see that change. And then before, if you're not outlining, then you want to make sure that you have that change at the end when you're editing. And then you want to find out what will really fix your hero's life. Your character will come out of the story differently than when they started. So that's it. They're not the same that they were in the beginning. So whatever will really fix your hero's life is a life lesson that they're learning. And it should be, in Save the Cat, they said it should be universal and inherently human. And this is what resonates with readers. So if you're like, oh yeah, what will really fix your hero's life is, yeah, this magic or something, like, people aren't really going to connect with that. But it's like, if you have it be, they're finally coming to terms with the grief. So recently reading Tristan Strong, the main character is finally coming to terms with the grief of the loss of his best friend and what happened with losing his best friend. So it's like, oh my God, that is like, everyone's experienced loss. So that's like universal and inherently human. So that's something that you want to think about too, something that people can connect with. Hello, Orla. No, you're not late. You can watch the replay. Thank you for joining. Hi, Bonnie. Yay. I know I missed a lot of other people that popped in here too. So sorry if I didn't shout you out. I love you all. And guess what, you guys? Boom. This is Q&A time. So while I'm kind of going through a couple other things, I do have some more kind of info too, but I want to make sure that we get through any questions that you guys might have that I didn't address as far as creating character arcs. So please let me know in the comments if you have any questions and I'll address them. And then I kind of have some last gems of things that I can discuss if we have some extra time. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to get a drink of water again. But so one of the last little gems that I wanted to touch about is that character arcs can be subplots too. And you can think about the character's arc as also revealing the theme of the story. So that's something that I also plot out before I start drafting, is what's the theme of the story, what's the mood, the lessons that I want people to learn, because that theme, so like, and agents ask that too. And then even if you're self-published, people want to know, you know, oh, is it found family? Is it friendship? Is it love? Is it self-acceptance? All of these things. So you want to find out what the theme is. And obviously that theme is going to revolve around that character's arc. And like the number one mistake that a lot of authors make when they're trying to create character arcs is that they try to remake the character into someone completely new. And that's not what you want to do. You want them to be like rearranged. So they're still the same person, but they've learned a lot and they've grown. They're not just like someone completely different, because that's not who the readers fell in love with and that who they've been following and cheering on. Because when you like kind of make them completely new, then you're kind of bound to like, people will be like, oh, they acted out of character, or they're completely different than they were in this, you know, than they were in the first book if you're writing like more than one book. So make sure that you're thinking about that piece of the puzzle too. Okay, let me pop up this question here by Emma. Emma asked, is the problem want need the same as the conflict in goal motivation conflict? No. So the problem is kind of linked to the goal for the character. So for example, let me see if I can think of a quick example. So like the goal for, oh gosh, this is bad. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something. So, oh, so I guess, okay, let me go back to the Wizard of Oz one, since that's the examples I use. So like Dorothy's goal is to like return back home. And the conflict is she doesn't know how, and the Wicked Witch of the West is trying to kill her. And so Dorothy's problem is that she doesn't know how to get home. Sorry, that might be really, really bad. So the problem, want, need is completely, the problem, want, need is all kind of tied into the goal and motivation. So that's more closely linked. But the problem and the goal, the conflict would be a conflict of both of those things. So I'm sorry. I hope that makes sense. I probably explained that really poorly. It's just really bad coming up with an example on the spot. I'm so sorry. Doll doesn't know the main theme of her book. Well, you better get on that. Are you? It depends on what draft you're on and if you finished the book yet. So Keelan asked, what's your favorite kind of character to write? Yay, I'm so glad you asked this. Hero, anti-hero, villain, etc. Yes. So I actually really like to write villains. But that's more so from the villain's perspective. Because like I'm like inherently nice and like good. So to be able to like, I can be bad, I can be evil. It's kind of fun because I'm like, this is completely different from how I am in real life. So I can be like evil. I can be someone who talks back and yells and does this, and like, you know, because it's like I don't do that in real life. So I love that. I would really like to write anti-heroes. I have like an anti-villain in Abargo's Riddle, but yeah, I haven't written an anti-hero, but I kind of want to. So maybe I'll think of that for my Nano novel. Okay, so let's see if Heather figured this out for me. Helped me. Problem, she doesn't know how to get home. Conflict, the Wicked Witch is trying to kill her. Yes. Thank you. So the goal comes out of the problem and the conflict comes out of the goal. Yes. Yes. Perfect. And you just started Save the Cat? Oh, I just stared the Save the Cat. I think you said started. Yeah. Duh, I finished the book. I just don't think of things in this way. No. Good Girl Williams, I just started my second book of my thriller and finally thought of a title for the book. Yay, that's awesome. I'm weird and I always have like the title when I come up with the story idea, the title comes along with it. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to know the main character's name and then I need to know their last name and like what they look like. That's usually what I start with. And Kaylin asks, do your characters come to you before the plot/world? Yes. Yes, they usually do. So usually when I come up with a story idea, it's like a basic premise. So there's like a character and a problem. Usually that's what I come up with. So it's that main character that I first come up with. And it's hard for me to start like plotting out the world because I'm like, I don't know what I should be having in the world because I don't know who's in the world and what I want to happen to them. So that's why I like to create the characters first. And then I can build up the world around that. Emma asks, any tips for arcs when writing a series as compared to a standalone? Yes, great example, or great question, sorry. So when you're writing a series, you want to have both the arc of a character for each story, as well as an overarching arc for that character across the whole series. So one of the examples I'm thinking about is Darkwind. Is it called Darkwind? I'm butchering my friend's book right now. But it is Renee Dugan and her Star Chaser saga. In the first book, the princess, doesn't know how to fight at all, and she's going to have to learn how to become a fighter. And so that's like the arc of the first book. And so she has to grow over the course. Only the second book came out in June, Dawnstar. So I still need to read that actually, but I think there's like 6 or 7 books. And then over the course of that, she's probably going to like become even more badass, maybe even a queen or a ruler or a leader. So there's still room for her to grow across all of the books. So it's not like, okay, you went from a princess, now you're a fighter. Well, it's not over. There's still things that can happen. Yes, Darkwind. Thanks, Hev. I knew you'd know. I'm just like really bad at this right now. So yeah, so make sure that, and ideally you would have all of this plotted out before you even write book 1. So if you're writing book 1 and you have, let's say you have a trilogy planned, you should know what's going to happen to that character, where you want your character to be at the end of book 3. And you can kind of think too, that's why some people say that second book is kind of like the muddy middle of like a regular book, where it's kind of like a slump in a way, or it's a little bit flat and people are like, oh, the first book was great and the second one was okay, and then the third one was like, oh, it was awesome, because people don't plot out enough in that second book. or the middle books. So you want to think about that too, that they're still growing and changing in that second book. And it's not just they're changing a lot in the first one and then that like ultimate showdown where they have their final changes in the last book, but that you have it throughout. All right. Sweet. Do we have any more questions? This has been so much fun, and now I just want to plot and outline everything right now. Keelan's second book syndrome equals me. Oh no, no, I'm so excited for all the Queen's Renegades. It's gonna be awesome. So let me see, what was the other little info I had? Just some random stuff. Man, there's a lot of lag. I have the YouTube comments popped up and like, Keelan, your comment's been up there forever. Okay, finally it came up on here. I wanted to pop it up. But no, your book will be awesome. Okay, let me pull this up. Oh, good. Here's another question. Toughest part about writing characters for you? Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, it's definitely their voice and making sure that everyone sounds different. Yeah, I feel like that's the hardest for me, is getting super close in their heads and doing that for every POV character. Because it's like usually there's like one or two characters that you feel really attached to, and then there may be some that you're like that kind of fall to the wayside. So there is a character in A Bargo's Riddle that for my developmental edits right now, like she kind of just like everyone else has more like stronger personalities, and she's supposed to be a little shyer, a little more reserved, but then it kind of made her feel a little flat and just kind of fade into the background. So I'm like, great, I have to like pump her up a little bit more, get her a little more in the foreground, whether that's kind of like changing up her dialogue, having her do more actions or something. So I feel like that's for me, and it definitely takes time for me to like really know my characters, and I feel like it takes multiple drafts before I like really know a character really, really well. Heather says, I'm so excited to plot my next book. Yes, I'm excited for your book too. Emma, I think we all struggle with second books. Yes, second book struggle. I just spent so long figuring it out. It's good now, though I love it. Nice. And Doll says, I'm the opposite. I get the voice right away. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, you're so lucky. I can hear them, how they speak, but ask me to describe them physically, and here I am still struggling, and I finished the book. See, the physical part I have down. So try that then. Try to like find like the actor or actress, or a celebrity, you know, someone that you can look up and see multiple pictures of and different facial expressions and stuff, because it can really, you'll have that person in your head, and then you're not just having some random made up character in your mind that like you don't quite know what they look like. But that's awesome that you get the voice down. Keelan says, someone I know does character interviews where she'll interview someone's characters, and it's the coolest concept. Oh, that is so cool. I would love to do that. So that's why I started my Preptober early, and I haven't done too much outlining yet for my nano novel, but I wanted to give myself 2 months because I wanted to make sure that I had extra time to write from my main character's perspective and like get into their shoes. So whether that's doing writing prompts, the character interviews, just anything where I can like know them better, so that hopefully I can get that voice down better the first time. Oh, doll, I'm so sorry. I'm blind. I can't see those things. Oh my gosh. No, Holly, no. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'm like so freaking embarrassed right now. So, I guess then in that sense, can you have, yeah, okay, so wait, sorry, I'm going down to this. Whenever I ask questions, people forget I'm blind. I cannot see faces. I did not know that, doll. So I wonder then if you have a family member or a friend who, like, if you want to say, like, think about how you picture your character, like whether they're tall, lanky, you know, square jaw, you know, petite nose, big lips, like, and then if they can try to like find a celebrity that kind of like looks like that, and so then they can tell you the rest of the characteristics of the character. I wonder if that could work. Just trying to find ways to help with that, because then they can give you the rest of those physical descriptions. So yeah, hopefully that will help. Sadie says, voice is the most fun of character for me. Making Pinterest boards and Canva graphics has been helpful for me to think of how they look physically. Yes, yes, I love making, I have like these private Pinterest boards, and I've been trying to throw in like pictures of the setting too, because then I like that when I'm like, okay, they're here, what do the trees look like? I can just pull up the picture. So even that is helpful too. Oh, and Saba Tahir does that. Cool, does the interviews. Awesome, Adrian, that's cool. Grace says, I'm excited to finish this book so that I can write my cliffhanger. It's going to be epic. Yes, yes. Cliffhangers are the best. They're evil when you're reading it, but they're so much fun when you're the writer, because it's like, you know what's going to happen, or maybe you do, who knows. Savy says, OMG character interviews. Can we do a big AuthorTube collab video thing with that? I want to interview people as their characters on video. Yes, please. Yes, that's amazing. Yes, so like, yes. Because she'll interview villains who are murderous obs. I love that. Oh, that is so cool. You have to participate in an interview as your character, and she's an interviewer. She's had characters try to kill her, so she made herself into a ghost so she can't die. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Hi, CB. We are just wrapping up. Yes, Sadie, please let us know about the this interview thing, because I am like totes in. Okay, let's see here. Where's my last slide? Yay! Thanks for coming, you guys. So of course I am here on YouTube. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'd love to have you here. You can also follow me at WriteHollyDavis on Instagram and Twitter for more writing advice, motivation, fur babies, all that good stuff. So you guys, thank you so much for joining me. This was so much fun. Please check out all of the other workshops and panels that are going on. There's also sprints going on at the same time. If there's a workshop you're not interested in, or you're really itching to write, I might try to hop into a sprint after this, because like now I'm itching to just like outline and get down that voice. Yes. Yay. Thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you for subscribing, Colin. All right, you guys, I'll let you go so you can check out the next workshop, and